Welcome to This Explainer. Look, if you're currently standing in your driveway, just staring at the outside of your home, completely agonizing over paint colors, honestly, I totally get it. It's kind of terrifying, right? You're feeling that creeping sense of decision paralysis because, let's face it, choosing an exterior color palette is incredibly stressful. It's a massive, expensive commitment, and the fear of getting it wrong and having to live inside a giant, strangely colored box, totally valid. But today, we're looking at some absolutely fascinating architectural logic from our source material that literally removes all the guesswork. We're going to break down exactly how to avoid making your home look like a giant highlighter or, a sad, disjointed banana, and instead build a truly flawless exterior. Okay, so let's dive right into this, because to get this right, we first have to understand why it so often goes spectacularly wrong. The source material highlights a major culprit here, and they call it the Swatch Trap. And oh man, is it a trap. Basically, this is the dangerous illusion that picking a tiny, pristine 2-inch color chip under the blaring fluorescent lights of your local hardware store is somehow going to translate perfectly to a massive, heavily textured surface that's literally baking in the outdoor elements. Honestly, falling for the Swatch Trap is the absolute fastest way to end up with a hugely disappointing facade. You see, the disconnect between expectation and reality here is just massive. On an isolated little chip, a color looks clean, perfect, and safely contained, right? But the second you apply that exact same paint across an entire house, real daylight completely takes over. Suddenly, that soft, innocent white you picked turns aggressively yellow in direct sun. Or maybe a cooler white that looked super crisp in the store suddenly reads flat, lifeless, or even strangely blue when the afternoon light shifts. The thing to remember is you aren't just painting a chip. You're painting a giant canvas that is completely at the mercy of the environment. And let's be real, the stakes of just guessing your way through this are incredibly high. Exterior paint is definitely not a quick weekend project. It is highly expensive and incredibly difficult to fix if you suddenly realize you've made a terrible mistake on day 2 of the spray. Plus, if the siding, trim, and doors are all just fighting against each other in this disconnected aesthetic, well, you're probably going to get a strongly worded letter from your HOA. But even worse, you are actively risking your home's resale value, and nobody wants to pay thousands of dollars just to lower their property value, right? A botched exterior repaint is a huge financial risk, and we want to avoid it entirely. So let's move into Section 1, Anatomy of a Cohesive Palette, going from macro to micro. To get away from this totally subjective guessing game of just picking pretty colors, we have to start looking at the house as one fully engineered composition. We're going to take a cinematic tour of a home's exterior surfaces, starting from the biggest visual elements all the way down to the tiny accent details, and we're assigning a specific functional job to every single one. The source gives us this really great quote that just hits the nail on the head. What looks confident on a color card can feel disconnected once it is applied across large surfaces. We absolutely must stop picking exterior colors in isolation. Now notice how these functional roles are assigned, starting right at the macro level. First up is what we call the anchor. That's your main siding. Because it's literally the largest visual surface on the property, it needs to be calm and steady. The source actually recommends a soft, warm cream for this. It gives a beautifully clean look without ever feeling sterile or blindingly bright. Opposing that, we have the frame, your trim and fascia. Here, using a deep bronze charcoal provides this incredibly crisp architectural definition around your roofline and edges, making the entire structure feel super intentional. Next up, we have to actually ground the home. Think about it. If your foundation is painted too light, the house visually floats. It kind of feels disconnected from the earth. But by using a warm caramel tone on the foundation, you beautifully soften that transition between the house and the ground. Then we look at the garage door. Honestly, a garage door is just a huge functional bulk on most homes, right? Applying a deep black there completely hides that bulk so it doesn't become a massive eyesore or a distraction. Plus, it perfectly reinforces the strong contrast of our deep bronze trim. As we step up to the entryway, you'll see these architectural roles just continue to build beautifully together. Your front door's functional role is to provide a gentle, welcoming visual pause for the eye. A warm grayish keeps the entrance super inviting without fighting against the cream siding or the dark trim. And, okay, here is a fantastic designer secret from the source material. Paint the porch ceiling a pale, cool tone. It's a brilliant little touch that literally bounces and reflects ambient light back down, making what is usually a dark, heavily shaded space feel wonderfully airy and open. Finally, we get down to the micro elements, the boundaries and the personality.
We want charm, for sure, but we want it deeply grounded. Muted sage shutters inject this natural, quiet sense of style into the facade. For fences or gates, a muted taupe gives those boundary elements a highly finished look that blends seamlessly in, rather than competing with the main house. And for that tiny pop of personality, a soft auburn accent. It's a very intentional, restrained moment of warmth that totally works without overpowering the rest of our cohesive palette.
Okay, moving on to section 2, the realities of shifting light and designing for the sun. So we've built our palette, but now we have to introduce the ultimate exterior wildcard, the sun itself. A truly cohesive palette isn't just about how colors look on a flat piece of paper. It's engineered to behave beautifully in constantly changing environmental conditions. Let's trace a day in the life of our anchor surface, the cream siding. Because the source chose a soft, warm cream rather than a stark, hospital white, it responds dynamically to the daylight. In the morning light, it glows beautifully and warm way. At midday, under the harshest full sun, it doesn't blind you. It reads incredibly clean and perfectly balanced. And by late afternoon, as the shadows start to lengthen, it softens slightly in the shade, maintaining its welcoming feel all day long. The absolutely crucial takeaway here is this dynamic relationship. While that massive cream siding surface kind of dances and shifts dynamically with the changing daylight, your deep bronze trim does the exact opposite. Because the trim color is so incredibly deep and highly saturated, it stays completely stable across all those varying light shifts. It acts as your unwavering anchor, confidently holding the architectural lines of your home together, while the body color basically breathes with the sun. And you know what? This logic is an absolute lifesaver if you have a north-facing home or a property sitting under heavy tree shade. Heavily shaded homes desperately require this precise, high-contrast structure. If you just paint a shaded house a medium, safe gray with white trim, the total lack of light will completely wash it out, making the facade feel flat and structurally weak. By balancing a light, bright body with deep, heavy trim, the home holds its shape, it commands attention, and it remains remarkably inviting even in the lowest lighting conditions. So how do we put all this together and finally eliminate that decision paralysis? Well, step 1, escape the swatch trap. Just commit to never picking an isolated exterior color under hardware store lights ever again. Step 2, look at your home and assign specific functional roles to every surface. Identify your anchor, your frame, and your grounding elements. Step 3, check the description below this explainer. We've linked to the source's full recipe guide, complete with all of these exact hex codes and buying details, so you can execute this entire cohesive system perfectly. I really want to leave you with this thought to mull over the next time you pull into your driveway. Take a good look at your home and ask yourself, is your exterior working as a cohesive, engineered architectural system, or is it just fighting the light? Applying these functional roles can completely transform your home from a huge source of stress into a stunning, deeply grounded masterpiece. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope you feel empowered to tackle that repaint with total confidence.